All right, so a little more about me because that's probably the most important thing here. It's I work for Akamai Technologies. I focus mostly on darknet, dark web, and cybercrime research. I do security incident response both internally and for our customers externally. Security trainings, workshops, CISP trainings, God help me. And I also get to be a general chaos monkey, going around the company, breaking networks and systems, and then helping them pick up the pieces and how can we make it more resilient going forward. So that's a lot of fun. So what I'm going to go over throughout this is some real life incident response that we had with account checker campaigns, and I'll go into exactly what account checking is. And some of the tools that they use, I'll show you some screenshots and then tell you about how they work and what features they have. And then we'll take a look at how, when these accounts have been popped, the money is being made off of them on the darknet markets. And also, I'll go into a little bit on how they get their money out of that system through different laundering schemes. So account checkers, account stuffers, credential stuffers, and login checkers all pretty much mean the same thing. It's when somebody gets a dump of login information from a breach or from phishing, something like that, gets a whole bunch of them together, and then automates with a script or a program going out to a bunch of different websites and trying these same credentials because everybody uses pretty much the same login information across multiple websites. So luckily, some of that is changing with things like password vaults, but it's still the vast majority of people will reuse their credentials across sites. So that's why these gangs are effective. So in the first-hand cases that we saw that we were defending against for our customers, we started trying to look for a pattern in terms of who they were targeting, and it really was all over the place. The main industries were retail, travel, and hospitality, but they certainly didn't stick to just those three. There was a large focus on any types of accounts that had a rewards program attached to them. So like a loyalty program, or you get a card and an account, and then after you spend so much, then you get free stuff, those sorts of programs. And then we saw, in terms of the actual source of the attacks, a lot of botnets and a lot of rolling proxies. Most of them, luckily, were pretty open proxies and not private proxies. So we could just right off the bat blacklist a whole bunch of them. We saw a lot of IPs from Holo VPN. If anybody's done any studying on them, that's not really surprising. We actually saw some Mac botnet IPs, which is like an old OS X botnet from like 2003. That was really interesting. Lots of shared hosting, and those are usually obtained either by compromising the shared host or by using stolen credit cards to purchase shared hosting. And once they're on to you, then they cancel the account, but you've already done your attack, so it doesn't matter. And lots of routers, lots of routers. That one wasn't so surprising, considering like the hard-coded admin credentials, open telnet, stuff like that. In terms of the actual traffic, we would see the cycle typically be 12 hours straight and then suddenly cut off and until the next 12-hour cycle. And then we also noticed that there was less traffic during typical US work hours or North American work hours. And while that's just a piece of information by itself, you can't do attribution just by that. It is one piece of a larger puzzle. We did see that they adapted very quickly to blocking IPs based on geography. They would just start using proxies from another geography. And then they quickly adapted to when we would serve them up 403s. So we had to start looking at different techniques. Some of the things that were kind of effective against them, when we started blacklisting whole blocks of IP addresses, and then when we started putting rate controls on the logins, of course, that helps a lot. But then what they would do after that is they would start going slower on their account checking process and more delays between each check to get underneath the limit. We would also check for valid refers. As I'll show you later, some of these programs don't use valid refers, so that's one red flag that we could use to see which IPs are attacking IPs. So now for the stuff that was super effective. One of the best things that some of our customers could have done and was really effective was adding an extra piece of information to the login logic, requesting something like a last name for the account. And what that did is it screwed up all of the templates that these guys were using for their account checkers, because they had been sharing templates, on forums and things like that, that said, this is exactly what the login page looks like, just plug it in and you can go. And this totally screwed that up. And we also found that a lot of like API and mobile login vectors had much lower, uh, uh, they had much fewer security controls and weaker security controls on them. And that if we updated those to match the desktop, page login, it definitely cut out a lot of the attacks. Um, Another thing that was a lot of fun is we found a lot of customers had a bunch of login vectors that were legacy, that were like from an old test or an old promotion or something that they didn't know about. So those were getting exploited. And once we started nuking those, we saw the numbers go down a lot. Something else that was a lot of fun doing, because we know it was really frustrating for the attackers, was instead of like just blocking them or sending them a 403 or something like that, we would tar pit them. So we would like essentially make their traffic take forever and go the long way around. And I don't know, that was a lot of fun. Also, having faked login static landing pages, even when they were incorrectly using the incorrect credentials. And what that did is it caused a whole bunch of noise in their end results. So they didn't know which accounts were actually active and which weren't. So once we saw an IP that we knew was an account checker trying to log in, even if they were using bad credentials, we would send them to this logged in page, and their script would automatically go to the next set of credentials and mark that one as correct when it wasn't. So yeah, take that. Um, So some of the cutting edge stuff that we really wanted to push for our customers to take on, and a few of them did, but some of this takes a lot more in terms of internal bureaucracy to get changed. Proactively resetting logins, even if you didn't have a breach yourself, but you noticed that there were logins on your system that you could hash match or something like that to a breach that happened elsewhere, and going to those users and saying, hey, we reset your password, please choose a new one, things like that. And within the past couple of years, Netflix, Facebook, and Reddit are three companies that have done this and continue to do it. Also, we did some on our own reversing of checker tools and then writing custom web application firewall rules for them. But that's something that customers, especially the larger companies that have their own security teams, can be doing on the regular when new account checkers come out. So I'll show you some of the tools that were used. This one was one that we traced back. So this is pretty funny actually, because the IP address that we saw coming in for this particular tool's attack was actually the web address where it's hosted. So they didn't obfuscate their IP address at all. And so we were able to just go to the website of the IP address that was attacking us. And some of the features are it's pipe delimited, so you just put in your email address, username, and password. And what it'll do is it'll check against the site to try logging in both with the email address and the password and with the username and the password. And you can put some proxies over on the right-hand side. You can see that they're using a local proxy system. So you can also have it automatically go in and get the info like the name, the email address, the mailing address, things like that. See if there's a credit card attached to the account or a gift card, and see what current orders are active so that they can go in and change the shipping address to an address of their choice. This is the PayPal Privat checker. Yes, they can't spell very well. Or they're Russian, I don't know. But this one's very similar. This one does the same thing for PayPal. It checks for the email, checks to see if there's a bank account attached to the PayPal account, gets all the personal info off of it, see what got recently paid, and gets the phone number, things like that. This guy is actually monetizing this one. It's not free, so you buy tokens to be able to use it. This one, if you're, I don't know, I guess really looking for some adventure, you can download and use on your local machine this Netflix account checker. Totally not backdoored, I'm sure. It's pretty simple. There's no proxy usage here. It just tells you which ones are working or not working. Here's another local one, little bit of a snazzier interface here. This checks for League of Legends accounts. Again, you have to use it locally, so good luck. Yeah. So these have been changed. This particular screenshot I made sure is that these logins don't work. That's why this one you see some blocked out because they did work. Right, right. They probably work for other accounts. Yeah, like Club Penguin. You want in? So one of the more sophisticated checker tools we saw was Century NBA. And this one is highly customizable, but it's also really easy for somebody who has no idea what they're doing to use. It has some extended features. In the latest one, 1.5, it added OCR captcha solving, which was like probably 65% effective. It might be cheaper to use like a Mechanical Turk out of Malaysia, but it's pretty neat that they're starting to add things like that to it. It does browser fingerprint spoofing, so you look like you're the person who is actually supposed to be accessing the account from the server side. It does refer spoofing, which we'll talk more about that later, and custom user agents. There is a proxy debugger to find out which proxies in your proxy list are actually working, and it allows you to just send batches of proxy IPs, and then it actively checks them and skips the ones that don't work. So the request headers are actually, pretty normal looking. There's nothing really weird in the way that it's set up or the order to really flag on. But there are a set of default user agents that you can use as data points for a red flag. And in the program, you can actually change these. But what's really funny is one of the sites I saw this program for sale on, the person who was selling it says, do not modify the headers unless you really know what you're doing. So it makes our job a lot easier because most of these kids are just not changing or customizing anything. So we know exactly what the traffic looks like. So this is what the main screen looks like. As you can see, it's pretty feature rich. There's a lot of customization you can do, but like I said, most people just leave it on the default settings. So we know that these attacks are coming in. We know what tools they're using for the most part, but I wanted to know, like, is there a market for this? Are they actually making money? Because there seem to be a lot of groups doing this and a lot of individuals doing this. So I wanted to know, these rewards accounts that they were targeting, how do they get like the stuff you can get from rewards accounts and turn it into money? So I went to the dark web. And I wanted to make sure that the places that I was looking at weren't like some forum that was really inactive. I wanted to make sure that I was in the hives of evil, I guess. And so I put some conditions on where I would be looking. I wanted to make sure it was active and live. I wanted to make sure there was an uptime greater than 95%. And I wanted to make sure that it was popular. So I made sure that it was Google search impressions greater than 60,000 and Google keywords greater than 100. That left me with Alpha Bay, Dream Market, and Nucleus Market. Note, the first two are still active and pretty big. Nucleus Market recently had an exit scam. And what that is where the market has lots of people put their Bitcoins into the market so they can buy stuff. And when there's a lot of Bitcoins, the market shuts down and runs away with the Bitcoins, which is hilarious. So I wanted to just do a quick cursory check and make sure that there were actual rewards account related stuff on these markets. And I found that there were a lot. There are restaurant voucher tokens you get from rewards accounts, spa rewards, vouchers for trains. Again, you get these vouchers from being like a Virgin Trains rewards member. Oh, yeah, well, it's kind of self-defeating term. Anyway, So something else that I thought was really funny is out of the gift cards, by and large, the most popular gift cards were Whole Foods Market gift cards. So I guess like these hackers like really want to eat healthy. I don't know. There were a lot of like gaming and air miles rewards. We'll talk more about the air miles because that was weird. Because I only saw like European and Virgin was like the only U.S. based one I saw, but all the rest of them were European or Asian airlines, and we'll talk about why later. GameStop rewards, you can buy either the points directly or the actual accounts. So, and getting like numbers of what's actually going on here. In the digital goods area, where this is like accounts you can purchase that have been hacked, malware, e-gift cards, there were 14,183 individual items for sale. In the fraud area, this is like credit card numbers, bank drops. This is a bank account that's been hacked that you can use to cash out. And personally identifiable information packets or fools. There were 15,426 individual listings. So yeah. Okay, yeah. So Johnny and I will talk more about that specifically tomorrow. But uh, these markets, what they are is it's essentially not when they'll if they'll get shut down, it's when they'll get shut down. So they know they're going to get shut down by the feds at some point in time. So what they're going to do is they're going to try and get the market as big as they can and tolerate as much risk as they feel like tolerating and get lots of bitcoins in it and then close it down before they get shut down by the government. And that's why they do the exit scan the way they do. So it's not like one person that has all these products. What it is there's a market, and then vendors pay the market to be a vendor, and then all these individual vendors are the ones that are selling to the buyers. So it's not like a web shop. It's an entire marketplace, like a bazaar, and they are pretty bizarre. So sorry, dad jokes. Um, In terms of the actual like hacked accounts, so where you can get logins to these accounts, there were 20 separate listings across 7 unique vendors, resulting in 2,014 sales, individual sales that had reviews and were vetted. In terms of just vouchers and e-gift cards that were taken from these accounts, there are 54 different listings across 13 unique vendors with a total of 3,136 individual sales. Transferable rewards points. There were 3 listings across 3 vendors, but the proportion of sales here was amazing. 698 sales. So they've definitely got that market cornered right now. As we were talking about before, for air miles, there were only 4 listings with 4 vendors and only 100 sales. And I looked into this. I'm like everybody's got to want air miles, right? Why would this not be a thing? So it turns out that air miles fraud was like a huge problem like 5 years ago. And so a lot of the major airlines, especially in the US, started locking down their policies on transferring air miles. So you have to like prove that there was like a death or that you know you're who you say you are. You have to like provide a picture of your passport and stuff like that, which really made it not worth it for a lot of these criminals. Now the next category is the one that really blew me out of the water because I was not expecting it at all, and especially not expecting it to be the largest section of the market. Criminal travel agents. So these are guys that will say, okay, I have all these hacked accounts, and I'll set up your flight, your rental car, your hotel, your cruise, all of that stuff. And then you just pay me one lump sum, and you get all of that I've used various rewards accounts to get. And the reason that it's so successful is because they're not using stolen credit cards. They're not using stolen money. They're just using rewards points, which technically don't have monetary value. So the cops don't really want to investigate it, and the companies just refund the people the rewards points that were used. So there were 93 general listings for travel agent services, 94 custom listings, 31 different vendors doing this, 4,808 sales, and like almost all of them were rave reviews. Like, oh, it was the best vacation ever. Like, there were no problems. It was amazing. They delivered as they said. I don't know. Personally, I would feel super sketchy doing that and like looking over my shoulder the whole time. But I don't know. These guys seem to enjoy it. So let's put these numbers in a temporal context. So this data was over a 10-month period of this year. And it was looking at 3 different markets, the top 3 markets, arguably. It was looking at a total of 10,756 sales of rewards fraud specific goods. So that definitely told me that there is an active market for this. So that's why we're getting all these attacks. People are making money off of it. And when you're done sucking the account dry, you can also get other stuff out of it. Like a lot of people attach their credit card information to these accounts, so you can buy stuff with the attached card. You get personal info that you can then turn around and sell. And then a lot of these rewards programs are starting to band together to make sort of rewards portals, where you only have to hack an account at one rewards program to get access to like 10 other ones, which is a problem. It makes it very difficult to tell where the actual attack came from when we're seeing the fraud, especially in those markets. I know we had one that we finally tracked back to a hotel that had a breach. That was interesting. Also, when you're done with all the stuff that you got out of it, you could just sell the account itself. So I wanted to take it a step further and say, all right, so I know that they're getting Bitcoins from the marketplace for all this rewards account fraud. How are they actually turning that into money? Because like dirty Bitcoin, you cash that out, I mean, the cops are on you in 2 seconds. So one of the first things I saw that a lot of people were doing is they'd use something called a Bitcoin tumbler. And what a Bitcoin tumbler does is it takes your Bitcoins, Bitcoins of other people that are using it, Bitcoins that the tumbler has in reserve, and mixes them all up. And then it creates a whole bunch of different Bitcoin wallets, and then shoots the coins that have been mixed up into a bunch of different wallets randomly, and then creates a whole bunch of other wallets, and then does more randomizing. It does that a few times, and then it sends you the Bitcoins that you wanted tumbled minus their service fee to your new wallet that you created. Now, some of the markets have implemented their own mixers. They're super fucking shady mixers. I would not use them. But Alpha Bay and Outlaw Market, which are large markets, offer tumbling services, but it's really opaque. You can't actually see what's going on. And you can't vet it to make sure that they're actually doing it well. So some of the most popular tumbling services that have a lot of good press behind them on the dark web, Helix Marketplace is by far the most popular. Bitcoin Fog Company comes in a close second. But smaller ones, BitMixer, Bitcoin Blender, and PayShield. PayShield is actually really interesting in that they're also the same company that does the SIGINT, anonymous and privacy-oriented email. But that email address, if you ever see an email from it, it's probably either a scam or they're trying to blackmail you. For some reason, blackmailers love using SIGINT. So this is what the front page for when you're starting a transaction for Helix. I think it's hilarious that they have add a random delay and send multiple transactions off by default, because both of those are things that would further obscure the trail, and you definitely want to turn them on every single time. So I guess they're making it easier for us who trace Bitcoins. I guess thanks. What that does is the delay is when they're sending the Bitcoin to you or to the other wallets, the mid-tier wallets. They're not going to keep using the same timing, because then it makes it easy to do statistical analysis on the movement of those Bitcoins, and they'll just randomly time it. Yeah. I would suggest not using your credit card to pay. So for that, the way that that a lot of them are doing it is they'll do in-person transactions with a stranger where there's no credit card involved with cash, or they'll go to like a gas station or a Walmart, and there are places where you could just buy Bitcoin for cash. That way, it's not attached to a credit card. but these guys are getting their Bitcoins from selling stolen stuff. So, this is the new kid on the block, Bitcoin Mixer. They got a super snazzy interface. But other than their graphics, they also have some really cool differences between them and some of the older tumblers. They randomly set the service fee. And the reason you would want to do that is because if you see 100 Bitcoin going into a tumbling service and then the 90 Bitcoin coming out, and you know that the service fee for that tumbling service is 10 Bitcoin, it makes it a lot easier to trace. Also, they have PGP confirmation for both their website, so you know it's not a phishing site, and for the individual transactions themselves. They also offer live support. So, and they offer a secure payment service, so you don't have to pay somebody in Bitcoins directly. You pay it through their tumbling service to somebody else. Some of the downsides, there isn't really a track record. They're new. There's a single owner, so there aren't other people to balance them out or keep them in check. And they require that you enable JavaScript in your Tor browser. Big red flag. There are a lot of JavaScript exploits that can be used to out you, you know, through your browser. So JavaScript's horrible. Also, with Bitcoin especially, because it's an open ledger system, obfuscation does not equal anonymity. If somebody tells you Bitcoin is anonymous, don't believe them. And there are some tools to go ahead and reveal and dig through some of the obfuscation. So put on your middle schooler hat and laugh at this one. So this is blockchain's taint analyzer. I don't know, maybe it's not a thing in French. So what it means by taint analysis here is the percent of funds received by an address that can be traced back to another address. So it looks at relationship correlation between Bitcoin addresses, and that helps you tell who's doing business with who in terms of the wallets. Blockseer, they do some of that, but also they offer this cool type of visualization. This particular visualization here is, you see up there, it says DPR seized, and Tim Draper, and ITBit. So what this is where the US government actually auctioned off the seized Bitcoins from the Dread Pirate Roberts and the Silk Road case. So you can see how some of the wallets are actually labeled who the owner is. And what Blockseer does that's really cool is they use a lot of open source intelligence, some guesswork, and some private info that they have to try and label wallets as they see them on who they think owns it, which is really useful. If you're more particular to Maltego, Chainalysis does a program called Reactor that allows you to see relationships not only between wallets, but through exchanges, through different Bitcoin casinos. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Also, it sees the relationships between, tumbling services. The next one is my favorite, personally. Numisite, it uses a tree branch view, and that really helps you to narrow down the relationships between different transactions to see where they're going and where they're moving. Now, this one's a really simple one. Before, when we were talking about the Helix tumbler, this is one of 3 slides long of a single tumbling transaction for Helix. So they really try hard to make it difficult to see where the Bitcoins are going through all of these wallets. But again, it's all out there, so if you take the time and do the analysis, you can trace it. There are some people that are doing some really good work in this field. Dan O'Farron, the guy who actually wrote that previous tool, he has a preliminary field guide for Bitcoin transaction patterns, which if you want to do any sort of cryptocurrency analysis is really a really good read. It tells you about the current patterns and transactions that you'll see. And so you start knowing what to look for when you're doing forensic analysis for Bitcoin. Also, Sarah Meiklejohn, all of her work, like I'm a total fanboy, she's amazing. But she does a fistful of Bitcoins, characterizing payments among men with no names. And the way that she does the analysis is really interesting. She has a statistical model that she applies to tell whether or not certain transactions are most likely devious in nature, and it's looking over a long period of a long history And then she takes that and uses it to correlate different actors and see who's working with who. And it's really neat. I would suggest everybody go read it. So, all right, how are people going to actually be getting those Bitcoins out? Well, there is a Bitcoin card that you can get from a number of short-lived Eastern European financial institutions. Not shady at all. But like you send them Bitcoin and then you can go to an ATM and cash it out. Problems with that. If you're physically taking out cash, there's an ATM with a camera or a bank with cameras and people that see you doing it. So, the cops can go and like, I want to see at this time who took this out. Also, again, Eastern European financial institutions that are like, it's like whack-a-mole. They go up and down all the time because they're super shady. In general, the cards and the companies that back the cards have short lifespans. A lot of people I saw had guides on how to cash out with tangible goods. So typically it's designer goods and electronics. And they would go and buy them, they're typically stolen. And people on the darknet will be selling these stolen goods. So they use their dirty Bitcoins to buy these stolen goods. And then they go to like Garage Sale or Craigslist or Backpage and say, hey, I've got this item for sale. Come meet me in this parking lot at night and we'll trade. Again, problems with that, you're dealing with tangible goods, so like somebody's going to see you at some point. I mean, if you're wearing a ski mask when you go to the trade, they're probably not going to go through with it. Some other guides and some other ways that I saw people discussing how they cash out is going to precious metals, getting Bitcoin for like prepaid cards like MoneyPack or Vanilla Card, or turning them into gift cards and then like going to a pawn shop and reselling the gift card, or going to Gift Card Granny and reselling it there. There are precious metals for sale on the darknet markets. You can see there's a Pandora Sterling Silver, there's 10-ounce bars, and this guy is like really enthusiastic about it being real, verified, 99.99% pure, not fake. Well, the problem there is these listings are right next to these listings, which are fake and say so. So yeah, good luck. So, I mean, it got a little bit easier within the last year or so, and that like legit dealers of precious metals started taking Bitcoin, so you don't actually have to go to the dark web to do that anymore. JM Bullion and Amagi are no doubt the largest like non-commercial sellers of precious metals to collectors. And so because those two are US based, they have to. So, I mean, because it's part of the anti-money laundering. Yeah, no, I want them to do that. Yeah, no, but I'm telling you, idiots will do that. Also, gift cards, again, Whole Foods Market. But so there would be stolen gift cards, and then people would use their dirty Bitcoins to buy the stolen gift cards and then go and resell the gift cards at a huge discount. There are people who also do prepaid cards, but the problem here is the service fee is 10% typically, which is pretty insane. And if you don't want to do any of those, you can also invest your dirty Bitcoins into like not so precious materials. This is an actual listing that is still up. You can buy a brick. Unfortunately, they only ship to Europe. Sorry, guys. So again, dealing with any of those tangible goods, you have to have a place where you're receiving or sending these shady goods from. So you're potentially exposing your home or your friend's home or business address. You could get a PO box, but that requires an ID. There are cameras there. There are employees there. You could try and use an abandoned drop. That's like when somebody has just moved or a business has shut down or they're on vacation or something. You can have it sent there and then get it, and you know it won't be intercepted, or hope it won't. But there you don't know if they've set up mail forwarding. You don't know if the mail will actually be delivered, because if UPS comes up and sees, this overgrown business, they might not drop off the package. With all of these, you also have to worry about controlled deliveries. This is where the cops pretend to be the person delivering the package, and then you sign for it, and then they cuff you. Triangulation fraud is a way to sort of get through this without actually touching anything. You have an unsuspecting customer. They order something that you're selling that you don't actually have in stock. And so once they order it, you use your dirty Bitcoins to go to a legitimate e-commerce site and buy the item they wanted, and then you ship it to them from that site. So you've never touched the item, and you're not actually interacting with the customer face-to-face or anything like that. And when the cops go to investigate this as fraud, they're going to go to that unsuspecting customer first. Bitcoin casinos and using Uber and Lyft. So Uber and Lyft was a kind of neat little trick. What they would do is they would buy hacked or stolen rider accounts, and then they would use a hacked smartphone that was running multiple instances of Uber or Lyft and just start throwing rides in there. There were ghost dispatchers that would inject targeted GPS pickups near the driver for these accounts, and then they would get paid by Uber. Bitcoin casinos, dirty Bitcoins into chips, you do some gambling, and then you get Bitcoins that have gone through the casino system. They have reviews for them, they tell you what they take. I like the little American flag because it's totally illegal in America. So one of the problems here is you're dealing with local laws, so not only are you committing wire fraud and money laundering, but now you're illegally gambling, so yay. Also, casinos also do exit scams where they get lots of people's Bitcoins and then just shut down and take all the coins. If the casino has low volume, then the Bitcoins have high traceability through the casino. And there's a lot of wager requirements for withdrawal of funds. Another one that works really well is moving your Bitcoins to a whole bunch of different alternative currencies. Some of them do have public ledgers though, so there's that. And you do have to worry about transaction fees, and if one of the markets has a spike or a drop, then you're going to be losing a lot of money that way. ATM runners, this is actually a really old system, but now it's been updated to use Bitcoin. So you pay your dirty Bitcoins to an individual that has a bank account attached to like Circle, Coinbase, or Zappo. And then they have people standing at ATMs all over the place. And then the second the Bitcoins hit that bank account, the ATMs withdraw all of it, and then they mail you money in the mail. So you just gave your address to a criminal. Good job. Also, you can use freelancer type websites that take Bitcoin, where you pose as both the person who is doing the work and the person who needs the work done. So you're just sending your Bitcoins through these freelancing sites to yourself. You can do the same thing with web shops. Etsy accepts Bitcoin, Shopify, Stripe. You set up a fake shop for, I don't know, Reiki healing through the internet or something. And then you be both the person who is getting the service and the person who is giving it. That didn't sound dirty at all. The worst one I saw, though, was guides on how to start your own charity for money laundering. So your website needed to have SSL lock icons all over the place because that makes it legitimate. There were guides on how to start your own church and how to start your own political action committee, your own PAC. That was really interesting. Yeah. But you're using them for laundering. Yeah. Though probably the worst part about it was, these are all the systems that you can do this that take Bitcoin for charity. And like almost all the guides were like, and the great bonus about this is people who feel bad for you will give you money as well as your laundering. And so that's terrible. So looking at the future, Dash is trying to make it more difficult for cryptocurrency transactions to be followed through the blockchain. They do some network pre-mixing, which again, if you take the time and have your due diligence, you can still trace it. Zcash is about to launch, and a lot of people are really excited about that because they use zero knowledge proofs for their transactions, and they mask the metadata for the transactions as well. The other one that's really blowing up right now that some of the markets are taking on, some of the darknet markets, Monero. It's based on a crypto note protocol, and the transactions are supposedly not traceable. Nobody's been able to trace them yet, and it's done through through a blockchain again, and it's now accepted by Alphabet and Oasis, and I believe one other market just started accepting it. And so when Alphabet and Oasis darknet markets mentioned that they're going to start accepting Monero, can you tell at what point that was? Yeah, so the value of Monero as opposed to Bitcoin just like shot up when that announcement was made. So it's definitely in heavy use in the darknet markets. So this was all stuff that I'm passionate about. I love it. If you see anything in this ecosystem that I missed that you think I would like to know, if you have any questions that you don't want to actively ask here, feel free to email me and I can get back to you if you want to copy the slides. Yeah, questions. So it's like any other criminal enterprise in that it's a constant arms race, right? There's going to be tools and methods developed for being able to track it and to capture the people doing it, and then they're going to come out with another way to do it. And then there's going to be more tools and methods for countering that one. It's just going to keep going and going. The reason why I gave that caveat of it being Monero supposedly being untraceable is that I mean nothing's 100% secure, right? There's going to be a crack in the wall at some point. So like Monero is going to get hacked at some point, and people will be able to see past transactions, or the feds are going to go in and put a tap on the line or something like that. Yeah. So America's Computer Fraud Abuse Act is really, really broad and vague. So probably, but not anything that a judge or a cop who knows about this stuff would look at right away and say like, "Oh, that's bad. I'm going to take you to jail." Like if somebody really, really had it in for me, they could probably come up with something cobbled together, but not really. So Johnny and I tomorrow during our talk are going to point out a bunch of those dumb criminal stuff. Um, there really is so much. The amount of people getting scammed is just hilarious, and the amount of them having future complaints about getting scammed by the same scams are huge. And it's great. And the people who like get scammed for fraud related stuff that are like really upset because they were planning on scamming somebody else, so now they can't. Yeah, they're like, hey, I had a plan to do this to this target I have, but now I can't because you scammed me. How dare you? I guess there is no honor amongst thieves. Huh? Oh, yeah, it's the same time tomorrow. Yep, right after lunch tomorrow. Any other questions? Cool. Well, I'll be around.